I'm taking a swig of my coffee. All right. Well. Welcome back to another video. If you are new here, hi there, welcome. To those who are coming back, welcome back. I am so happy to see you. Thank you guys for joining me for another video and for being patient. It's been a minute since we've done a crime time story. As you can see, a lot has changed. That's why I've been kind of MIA, but I really appreciate those OGs sticking around and coming back, and newcomers taking the time to check me out. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Okay, so first things first, couple disclaimers. If I sound froggy, if I talk a little slow, if I seem phlegmy, if you can sense that I'm getting off of a cold right now, that's exactly what's happening. And I have a bit of a petty cough that's trying to get rid of the whatever's going on. So I really appreciate your patience and understanding. I didn't want to put this video off any longer than I needed to, and it's already been 2.5 weeks that I've been dealing with this cold, so I'm really not going to let it get in the way any longer. So we're going to go ahead and do this video, but just letting you know. Also, I have my fan on. I understand it's kind of in the background a little bit, but it's hot and I really don't feel like turning it off, so I'm sorry, we're just going to have to deal with that. I just wanted to start off with a little warning. So just as usual, I always give a bit of a disclaimer before I start my videos, just in case anybody is extra sensitive in the crowd, which is fine. I'm not saying that as a jab. I completely get it. Trust me. So warning, if you are squeamish to any of the following, I do recommend that you click off of this video, maybe visit my series High with Ty for some shits and giggles, for some laughs and lighthearted comedy and fun, because it's gonna get motherfucking dark in this goddamn video. It really is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So this video will contain disturbing descriptions and or conversations of human decay, human flesh, gnarly human injuries and or wounds, human starvation, death, and torture. If any of these items make you physically sick, or you do not feel that you have the mental or emotional capacity to handle such topics and or discussion, I would again recommend clicking off of this video and maybe clicking on the recommended video in my description box down below. Feel free to click on that video at any point in time. Maybe right now we're feeling courageous, but halfway into the story maybe we're not. Feel free to click off. So you've been warned. We're going to go ahead and now dive into the story of Lacey Fletcher. Okay, so starting at the beginning, on November 25th, 1985, both Sheila and Clay Fletcher welcomed a baby girl into the world, named her Lacey Ellen Fletcher. The Fletcher family lived in a nice home located in Slaughter, Louisiana of East Feliciana on 2658 Tom Drive. Not to start any confusion, but in Louisiana, it is absolutely different versus LA, for example, where I'm from. But they have like parishes, and parish is basically a county. A county is a parish in their state. Before we get into the story and before diving into anything, I just want to make it very clear that this case was concluded very quickly. Obviously, it's still open, like the parents are currently on bond. They bailed themselves out of jail and they're living freely until another court case date is disclosed and released. So this is something we're still waiting for a trial on as of right now in current time. So a lot of details are not easily found in articles online. I've had to watch like other content creators to get details because the website is scarce. Admittedly, I've had to take advantage of these other higher like YouTubers and watch their videos and gather my details because they have the resources and the money to obtain these details, whereas like someone like myself and the level that my platform is on right now, I have to get my details, research, and information from, as you know, whatever is available right on the internet. I type in Lacey Fletcher and I just keep clicking through until I can compile my notes and my story. But I will listen to people, and details that they have are not found in any of the research I've done. So my point is, if you know any details or any information related to this case that I missed to, inform you of or mention in this video, please drop it down in the comments below. Let's start a discussion, and make people aware of any additional information that I failed to provide you here. This video will be based off my best efforts in researching online and compiling a story for you. So I just want to put that out there. If anybody hops in the comments and they're like, she forgot to mention this, and it's like, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't being lazy. It wasn't not caring to take that extra step to, jot that information down and fit it into my notes. It's because I may have genuinely never came across it, never seen it, never had access to it. So just letting you guys know. Sheila Fletcher is a 65-year-old woman. She was 64 years old at the time of this situation when it all took place. She's described as a person who was well connected with her community. She has a lot of work experience with her local politics and her community. She would attend community events, coordinate them, hang out with her colleagues frequently. She worked as a secretary and as a police clerk in Baker, Louisiana, and she was a secretary for the city's prosecutor, which is like a pretty big job on the spectrum of like local politics. So she was a filing clerk. She was his secretary. She'd been working since 2011, basically, for the city's prosecutor as a secretary. She was also known to be the town alderman, it's a funny fucking word, of Slaughter, Louisiana. If you don't know what a town alderman is, because I really had no fucking idea what they are either, I had to look it up. It's a person who was voted onto the board by fellow board members, not by popular vote. So the city of Louisiana, Zachary did not vote her onto the board of politicians. The politicians of that city voted her onto the board. So it was very exclusive voting and decision to put her on their team. But town alderman is a person who was voted onto the board by fellow board members, and their role has a lot of responsibility and power. I mean, I read, if my research is correct, right? A town alderman has the ability to create, pass, and amend local laws and approve the city's budget every year. In my opinion, that sounds like a very powerful position. I mean, you can adjust and submit laws and have them processed and officialized. I mean, a lot of people would want that job. So that's pretty much all I could dig up on Sheila Fletcher, right? So we just have to conclude it there. She, given the basis of who she is, we can conclude that obviously they portrayed a very happy-go-lucky, white picket fence kind of mentality. For Clay Fletcher, Clay Fletcher was the president of the Baton Rouge Civil War Roundtable. I know I'm butchering a lot of these words, and I apologize in advance. It's just going to keep happening. The Baton, goodness gracious. The Baton Rouge Civil War Roundtable is basically a nonprofit organization that focuses on basically preserving the sacrifices that were made in the Civil War and its history. I took a look at the website that they have for this, and John Potter, who I will mention in a moment here, currently has taken over the Baton Rouge, given everything that has occurred, and they honestly just recruit members. It looks like you just apply, you send an email, you basically, it seems like a friendly little organization. If you go to their website and read the description, it's basically just a bunch of people, men and women, but mostly men, who get together and just revel in those times. The positive, the negative, the sacrifices, how did that history, bring us to where we are in modern time? How did it affect the modern day, taking place back then? All sorts of shit like that. It's almost like a high school club, right? Or like a college club. Like, you get together and you just fucking enjoy talking about Civil War and its history and its impact then and now. And it's been going on for a long time. John Potter, to get into who that gentleman is, since I mentioned him, he was, if I'm not incorrect, I believe that they both organized the Baton Rouge. I'm just going to call it Baton. It's driving me fucking nuts. We'll be right back. So it looks like a pretty organized nonprofit community. Like John Potter is a member. Now this is where the research failed me, the lack of details failed me. It said that he was a co-worker of Clay Fletcher. So here's the thing. I don't know if they worked together outside of the organization and their co-workers affiliated somehow else, or if that was their main job and they are co-workers from the Baton Rouge organization. So in either case, John Potter has known Clay Fletcher for about 6 years. They work together on the Baton Rouge organization. They've known each other for a good chunk of 6 years. And to understand who the Fletchers were a little bit more in depth, they invested in their community. They were very hands-on with their community. It was said that they loved to attend the LSU football games, which is a Louisiana State University campus, college, whatever the fuck, such as football, and attended different community events, including family gatherings. They were very engaged with their community. Basically, these great, outstanding civilians of their community. They're considered, Samaritans. They're considered just these good people who want to invest in their community and bring the best out of people. So those are Lacey Fletcher's parents, right? Clay and Sheila Fletcher. Lacey Fletcher, getting into who she is, she attended Brownsville Christian Academy in Baker, Louisiana, where faculty, staff, and even students, friends of hers, would say that she was very friendly. She was very welcoming. She, never let newcomers feel alienated. She always was the welcoming committee to newcomers or people who felt like they were not a part of the clique or a part of the group or not fitting in. She always made it her goal to just connect, make them feel heard, make them feel seen, make them feel less lonely. Basically being a friend to the underdog, or, being that first person to kind of open people up, welcome them in, Lacey was also known to be very athletic, not, I wouldn't say on the competitive side, but she loved to be active. She loved to work out. She loved to, do sports to remain active and have some form of exercise throughout the day. She loved to hang out with her friends on the school grounds. She loved to hang out outside of school. She was a normal, happy teenage girl. It wasn't until she started entering her teenage phase, I guess, when she had turned as young as 13, 14 years old, the school faculty and her parents would begin to notice that she was not evolving at the same rate as her peers, meaning after some time, typical teenage or preteen phases would start to dwindle and fizzle out, right? We're not playing with Barbies anymore. We're not playing dress up anymore. We're not having tea parties anymore. Things that, activities that, preteens would typically do before turning to teen age years. They started to notice that, like, for example, while Lacey was still into very kiddie level activities, such as dressing up and, maybe one example that definitely stuck out in her observations around her was that she was still very invested into Disney movies, Disney princesses, like overly, like she was bleeding Disney. Like she loved to watch those movies. She loved to fawn over the characters and the storylines, and like there was just little things here and there that started to tip off her parents and staff at school that perhaps her mentality was not evolving at the same rate as everyone else. You know, meanwhile, her friends have moved on from Barbie dolls. They've moved on from playing dress up. They've moved on from playing tea party. They've moved on from Disney movies, you know, like, and it's kind of funny because just a personal opinion here, a personal thought for a split second. It's kind of funny because nowadays I know so many fucking adults who are way older than a 13-year-old that fucking fawn over Disneyland, that fucking make it their life's mission in their mid-20s to early 30s, in even late 30s and so on, to get a Disneyland pass and fucking go there like 2-3 times a week, you know? And I'm not hating, I'm just saying I feel like that's such a poor judgment because nowadays you have grown-ass adults still fawning over Disney. So like to me, that's not really a red flag, but I get it. There was still other tests and observations that showed she was just she was dealing with a mental disability that basically preserved her inner child, right? She wasn't really adapting to being a teenager and evolving into adult. Like she was just stuck in her 16-year-old mind. She was very into country music. She loved Mariah Carey. In the 9th grade, yeah, given that she was stuck in like a 14-year-old mindset, even though she was like 15, 16 and like growing up physically, mentally, she was stuck. That's like what I've been trying to say. I don't know, I've been struggling to get it out in a proper manner. But because of this, in 9th grade, her mother, Sheila Fletcher, took her from public school and registered her to be homeschooled with Sheila at home. Given the mental disability was progressing and Lacey still believed to be in the era of a preteen instead of a teenager, like well into her teens, Sheila and Clay Fletcher thought it was best to just keep her home and monitor her that way. Sometime after that, I think that was when she was around like 14, maybe 15 years old, they started to notice like these issues with her mental disability. So after she became homeschooled, she's like around 15, 16 years old. Lacey, come to find out later on, hadn't been to a doctor since she was 16 years old. So that basically is the gist of the information I have in regards to Lacey's upbringing, who she was as a person, and the same goes for her parents, Clay and Sheila Fletcher. So this is what I'm talking about. I wish I had more substance to share with you guys. I wish I had more details to share with you guys. This is all that I could find. Hopefully more details and information will be brought to light when they commence the second or like the court hearing. I can't recall if it's like the first or second court hearing, but in either case, I hope more details come to light because I'm honestly like not pleased with what I could find. On January 1st, Sheila and Clay Fletcher were returning from a cruise, on January 2nd, Sheila and Clay Fletcher were returning from a cruise. The details of the name and the destination could not find. It was reported though that they did go on a cruise in order to celebrate their New Year's Eve. So that weekend prior, of 2023, they were packing their shit and leaving for a cruise while Lacey was left at home. They returned January 2nd after celebrating on January 1st, and upon their arrival, they had noticed that their daughter, Lacey, was not breathing nor responding to them when speaking to her. So Sheila began to panic as she realized that her daughter was unresponsive. So she picked up the phone to call 911 immediately, because she realized that her daughter may very well be dead, because she's not breathing, she's not responding, she's not saying anything, she's not moving. When paramedics arrived to the Fletcher household, a disgusting stench reported by the paramedics and the coroner later on, a disgusting stench fucking just assaulted them the minute they walked through the front door. They began to travel through the house. You know, they asked, where's Lacey? And Sheila had guided them to the living room, where she said Lacey was on the couch. After, leading them into the house, Sheila was found sitting down crying with her head tucked between her knees and her hands, the palms of her hands in her face. Clay was reported to be standing idle off to the side, stoic and detached. When the paramedics have made their way to the living room, the stench began to grow uncontrollably strong. At this point, they had said they started coughing. One of the rescue members, right, the paramedics and or the coroner later on, reported that they began to feel nauseous. They were trying not to throw up. It was disgusting. And when they had arrived to the couch, another fair warning, it's about to get disgusting. When they got to the couch, they found a body described to be Lacey Fletcher laying down on the couch. Now, she was still unresponsive, and when they went to assess the body, the horror that these paramedics encountered will forever haunt them. Lacey Fletcher was not just laying on the couch, she was embedded into the couch. Come to find out later on, she had been laying on that couch for a total of 12 years. 12 years. She had been laying on that same exact couch in that same exact position, which was almost a fetal position, but sitting. And she had been on that couch for so long that her skin began to melt into the pleather of the sofa, that she was clung into the couch. Paramedics would go on to describe that not only was she infused into the sofa, but she had feces all over her body. Okay, this is where I'm going to start to get pissed off. She had shit, human feces, her feces, smothered all over her northern region, obviously. But then paramedics would go on to discover, after investigating her body, autopsy and everything, not in that moment, but like just giving you all the details, whether in that present moment or we discovered them later on, what have you, we found out that her human feces was also discovered on her chest, her stomach, in her stomach, in her ears, in her hair, and in her face. Now, paramedics will also discover that maggots were also discovered in her skin, in wounds that were on her body, in her hair, in her ear, and near her face. She had maggots all over her body. She had urine all over her body, and of course, as well as on the couch, maggots, urine, and feces. She had matted and knotted hair. She was pale. She was ghostly. She looked as if she was dead. Even prior to them reaching out to the authorities, the paramedics said that she was decaying for sure. She had bacterial infections all over her body. So she had basically bacterial infections that started off as small little cuts and began to expand, because since they're bacterial infections and no one was fucking taking care of her, obviously, given her, how she was found, given her condition and how she was found, no one was taking care of her. So these bacterial infections began to spread, meaning they began to grow from a small cut to a baseball-sized fucking crater in her skin. The bacterial infection ate away at her flesh to the bone. So not only was flesh and bone basically exposed, but then she has maggots. So these maggots would then crawl into the bacterial infections and begin to feast on the bacteria and her infected flesh, because that's what maggots do, right? We know the whole like ancient home remedy where you would put maggots on a cut, like a nasty infected cut, and they eat away at the bacteria and the decaying flesh, like basically like they eat away and trim at whatever is dead and would be removed by a doctor anyways. So she had all these bacterial infections, and these maggots, you know, would crawl into her flesh and start eating away at the bacteria, and they would eat away at her bone. I mean, she had ulcers, she had sores from being on that couch forever and no one rotating her or moving her or, you know, getting her up off the couch and moving around the house. She had ulcers because of it. She had these what is it called, rashes. Yeah, they're called like bed sores. There was also blackened spots on her buttocks and on her backside, I believe also related to bed sores. The skin just was decaying. There was, upon, you know, having an autopsy performed, the coroner discovered that there were bits and pieces of the sofa's material in her stomach as well. So safe to say that obviously she was not being fed, she was not being taken care of regularly. So she was basically eating the couch because it was the only thing that she could reach. Later on, she would succumb to severe starvation. That was I believe they declared that was the ultimate cause of death, was starvation. Not the fucking multiple infections that she had, not the maggots, not being, you know, fused to the couch, not rotting in your own feces and urine. This girl starved to death despite all of the injuries that she was continuously acquiring and dealing with throughout 12 years. 12 years. You gotta be fucking kidding me. 12 years, dude. Some people are just not meant to be fucking parents, seriously. To explain, right? Lacey was found on the couch, but why didn't she leave, right? Why didn't she preserve herself? Why didn't she put her survival first, get up, and leave? Guess what, people? She couldn't. She had locked-in syndrome. If you don't know what locked-in syndrome is, it is a very rare condition that does not, you know, pop up every other day. It's a very rare condition that people get diagnosed with, and I am more than happy to read the definition instead of butchering what it actually is. And I would like to say that the locked-in syndrome absolutely reminds me of sleep paralysis. So I don't know about y'all, but moi here struggles and deals with sleep paralysis on almost a daily basis. If I'm not smoking my marijuana and I try to go to bed, I'm waking up stiff as shit, only my eyes can move, and I'm trying to get out of a whole body paralysis state. It's not fun. It's fucking horrifying. Whether you're experiencing it when you go to sleep with sleep paralysis, or you're dealing with it on a regular basis with locked-in syndrome. Obviously, locked-in syndrome is a lot worse than sleep paralysis, given that its duration is a lot longer than an hour. People with sleep paralysis at most experience an episode for an hour, maybe a little over, but there is no reported cases of someone experiencing sleep paralysis for over an hour. Locked-in syndrome is your life. Every waking moment you are locked in. So locked-in syndrome is a rare disorder of the nervous system. People with locked-in syndrome are paralyzed except for the muscles that control eye movement. Conscious, meaning aware, and can think and reason, but cannot move or speak, although they may be able to communicate with blinking eye movements. So in my personal opinion, that that kind of reminds me of sleep paralysis. Again, the duration, how do you say, like, obviously locked-in syndrome is a more lifelong diagnosis. Sleep paralysis is a brief moment in time, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I understand it's not really the same in that area, but as far as the symptoms, it reminds me of sleep paralysis. So you're basically paralyzed. You can't move your fingers, you can't feel them, you can't move anything at all. You're stuck, you're a statue, you're rock heavy, hard, like you can't move. Like if you're sleeping like this, you're stuck like this. And when you wake up, you can feel it. You know your body is disengaged. You're not going to be able to move it. You're not going to be able to communicate with it. All communication from your brain to your body and what you're trying to tell it to do is gone. It's gone. Whether you like it or not, because I know some people are like, sleep paralysis, I could break out of that easily. Be my motherfucking guest, bitch. Good luck. Let me know how you do it. Because, yeah, I wake up and I'll be paralyzed and all you can move is your eyes. All I can move are my eyes. I can look around. I can see my surroundings. I can hear things. I am conscious, but I am not physically capable of interacting with my surroundings. I am stuck until my body thinks or feels it's best to resume activity. But until then, I am stuck. And so when I heard about the locked-in syndrome and I read its description, I mean, I can't help but like sympathize with Lacey in a way, right? Locked-in syndrome is basically being a prisoner in your own body for the extent of your life. I don't think there's a cure. I think you could take medication to help you out, but I think with this condition, I lost my train of thought because my camera is such a fucking piece of shit. I think with this condition, like I can relate with her. Like imagine being stuck on that couch. You can't move, you can't talk, you can't defend yourself, you can't protect, it's the same shit. You can't defend yourself, you can't, in any way, shape, or form, physically, verbally, all she can do is move her eyes and blink. This girl was succumbed to 12 years of torture and neglect from her parents who clearly did not give a shit about her. And it was very apparent in the crime scene. I mean, obviously, she's on a couch, and I'm going to show you guys a picture of this couch because the way this couch looks was not someone just sitting there for a week or a year or two. This looks like 12 years. Like the coroner said after the autopsy, given his calculations and his research and what he invested in that autopsy, he discovered that her body had been decaying on that couch for well over or at a 12-year mark. So for 12 motherfucking years, this couch looks like she's been on it for 12 years. It's decayed, it's rotted, it's ripped. When they had to retrieve her body from the sofa, again, her skin was infused with the leather, so bits of her skin were ripped off and stuck to the couch. The bottom of the couch is soiled like it is because they were allowing her to lay on that couch for not only 12 years, starving with maggots developing around her body, but they let her basically relieve herself on that couch day after day and didn't give a fuck to clean her, nothing, change her clothes. And speaking of clothes, she was discovered with only a shirt on. I don't know if she even had underwear on, and her shirt wasn't even all the way down. It was pulled up near her face, exposing her breasts. What kind of mother and father are parading around the house, cleaning, answering phone calls, cooking, what have you, and just, another day, and you walk by the fucking living room sofa and your daughter is just there dying with her breasts out in the open. That is just some sick, twisted fucking shit, if I ever heard it. And her mother is a psychopath. I mean, both of them are. Clay and Sheila Fletcher are psychopaths who deserve to be put in fucking jail for murdering their daughter. Not neglecting her. I mean, yeah, neglecting her, but ultimately killing her. And the reason I say that is because Sheila was reported to literally just kick it in the living room right next to her dying daughter. She would, I don't know, Sheila, what are you into? Crocheting, reading a book, watching TV, watching CNN. In either case, she was known to be present in the living room and hang out while her daughter is dying right next to her. Like the condition she was left in was just awful. It was horrid. Coroner had even stated that he was stunned with what he saw in the Fletcher home, that he hadn't eaten food for 2 weeks, and that he even almost vomited when on scene. And like the only thing that was keeping himself composed was the fact that it was a crime scene and he wasn't trying to contaminate anything, but he had to excuse himself and step outside. From what I heard, he had to step outside, excuse himself, and then go back in when he was capable of facing the reality of the situation. Which was the fact that this young girl had been neglected for a good chunk of time. I mean, you know, it doesn't take a genius to like look at that crime scene and be like, okay, and let me guess, you guys left her alone while you were on your cruise? And that's what happened here, because maggots don't manifest that quickly. Even if they do, bacterial infections do not manifest within a week period. Like, let's say they were gone on a cruise for a week. I may not have that information. This is bothering me. I may not have that information, but what I can tell you is a cruise is not going to be less than 3 days. It's not. So you guys were gone for about a week, and honestly, this is going to sound bad, but I'm just going to be completely honest. Let's just say that they didn't want to take care of her. Okay, let's just address the elephant in the room. You let your daughter die in the condition that she was found, which shows us that you could care fucking less about having a daughter and taking care of her and preserving her life. So if that was the case and you guys knew that 12 years ago, because something tells me it would take a little less than the first year out of the 12 to determine if you want to fucking keep her around or not. Because past the first year, you guys were already on the road of letting her starve, letting her decay, keeping her on that couch, not feeding, not washing her, not cleaning her, not taking care of her hygiene or her needs. So why not put her up for adoption? Why not rehome her? Why not investigate into services or organizations that could assist you with, homing, housing, getting a caretaker for someone with a disability? Why not hire a nurse, a living-in nanny or nurse that could, take care of her during the day while you guys are fucking busy off fucking around with your goddamn politicians? Like, what was the hesitation, honestly? What was where was the moment that should have happened where it's like, hey, Clay, honey, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have a fucking kid. And if we're not going to take care of her, maybe we should start looking at alternative options. And I feel like, yes, a lot of people are going to have judgment towards parents putting their kids up for adoption, irregardless of the situation, irregardless if they have disabilities or not. But I feel like you would have had less motherfucking judgment if you had actually arranged for her to be taken care of versus her being found on your couch 12 years later, dead. Because it was reported that the Fletchers, after this came to light about Lacey and her passing, a lot of family members and friends were honestly like shitting on the Fletchers. They were like, gee, like it makes sense why you guys never fucking invited us over for the cookout last summer, because your daughter is fucking literally dying on your couch in the fucking living room. Oh my God, I want to fight bitches. I will literally throw motherfucking hands if I see Clay and Sheila Fletcher in public. Because it is just straight up neglect. It's straight up neglect, and it turned into murder. She was a 36-year-old girl with a mental and physical disability that could not allow her to live I don't want to say normal life. She deserved that. She should have had that. But I mean, it took some things away from her, right? With restrictions comes, certain adjustments, being homeschooled, being monitored by a nurse, being in a wheelchair because you have locked-in syndrome. Like, I get she would have not had a normal life, but she deserved that much. They should have arranged for her to be able to have a life and fulfill it, not just let it rot away for 12 years on a motherfucking sofa. And what gets me the most about her locked-in syndrome is, what if, some people, they can still hear their surroundings with locked-in syndrome. Some people can't. Some people, it's just a disarray of confusion because their body is fighting itself. Some people, they're still present. They can still see, they can still hear. And if anything, they're trying to scream out. Like I said, you're literally a prison in your own body. They're trying to communicate half the time, and we just don't fucking know it because their body won't allow it. So imagine if she could hear. Imagine if she could still see and feel. God forbid she could still feel, even with the locked-in syndrome. Because again, some people, they may not be able to see, they may not be able to hear, and they may not be able to feel because they're basically numb. Their body is locked. I hope, I pray she did not feel. Because if she did, she could feel those maggots crawling in her skin, up and down, getting to the bacterial infections on her body, eating away at her, growing in quantity, hatching, crawling everywhere. She could feel her feces in her hair, in her ear, on her skin, most of all coming out of her. Same with her urine. And with hearing, I mean, dude, I have no doubt that they put feces in her. I have no doubt that she was starving so badly that they were like, oh my God, what a fucking joke. Why don't we just, I don't know, get some gloves, take some of her shit and put it in front of her face and see if she eats it. It was found in her stomach. She can't move. You're not going to bullshit at me and tell me that she did it on her own. That she, with locked-in syndrome, happened to take a full fucking arm, get a swig of fucking shit, and eat it. You're not telling me that. I'm not going to sit here and accept that excuse. Didn't fucking happen. Someone, whether Sheila or Clay, took her shit, put it in front of her mouth, and Lacey was starving for 12 fucking years. Of course she fucking ate it. 12 years. No substance, no food, no hygiene routine, nothing. Nobody's taking care of her. Of course she ate the fucking couch. Of course she ate the feces. She's not being fed. She's starving. And honestly, having anything in your body at that point would help, because starvation is a killer. So of course she ate what she could reach, even though she was physically incapable of handling, being able to go to the kitchen and make herself something. She ate what was available to her. She had shit in her ears, in her hair, on her chest, on her stomach. Again, this young girl is not capable of moving. I'm calling bullshit that shit happened to end up there in those areas. No, someone put them there. Someone knowingly and willingly put them there. Whether it was Sheila or Clay Fletcher, someone did that to Lacey. I can only imagine laying still, stiff, locked for 12 years and hearing the things they may have said about her. Because if you are going to let your daughter rot away on a couch for more than a year, in a total of 12 years, you don't give a fuck about her. I'm calling bullshit. No parent is going to sit in front of me and be like, oh my God, I loved her with my heart. Was that before or after you killed her? Because if you loved your daughter, if you loved your kid, I wouldn't be making this video, bitch. There would not be a conversation about Lacey Fletcher and her parents and how they are going to be trialed for her murder through neglect. And that would be that. We wouldn't be here. But yeah, you didn't give a fuck about your daughter. You didn't care for Lacey Fletcher, which is why you let her rot away for 12 years and let her die eventually on the sofa, and why you left her there. It's the same reason why they didn't let people over their house. They didn't want her, want people to see her. Obviously, they didn't want that. Like, they knew what they were doing was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you really didn't think it was that big of a deal, by accident, you would have probably invited people over and been like, oh yeah, there's my daughter, da, da, da. And then people would have probably broken it to you. Like, this is no way to raise your daughter and take care of her, especially given her disabilities. But you knew what you were doing was wrong. So you hid her in your house. You never invited people over, never invited family over, never ever had a cookout at the house or hosted Christmas or New Year's. That's why you guys went out on a fucking cruise. I mean, family and friends would go on to say that the Fletchers were at some point, like, it was questionable why they wouldn't let people over, but it didn't raise enough concern for people to question it at the time. So they just respected their wishes and was like, yeah, no problem. Like, you can come over to our place instead. That's not a big deal. But the reason why, come to find out later on, that they never allowed people over was because she was on the couch decaying. And they knew what they were doing was wrong. So they kept it hidden. And that brings me to my next part here is, like, I'm not I'm not wishing that Clay and Sheila Fletcher get away with their actions. The consequences of their actions are going to hold them accountable. But I'm just saying, if I didn't give a fuck about my daughter and my goal was to let her rot and let her die, I mean, first of all, where did they think this was leading to? Like, you guys are so fucking dumb. You literally didn't think this through. So what was the plan? To leave her on the couch, let her rot away, and she's gonna magically just continue to live on until she dies peacefully in her sleep? Like, what the fuck did they think was gonna happen? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. It's like they have a guilty conscience, and it's very apparent because they called the cops instead of hiding the body. You know what I mean? At the same time, they don't have a guilty conscience because they decided to leave her there to rot and die. Like, the stupidity is astronomical. Like, you can't think like, oh, I'm going to put her on the couch and she'll be fine, without even considering food and water and cleaning her regularly and moving her around and rotating her so she doesn't get bed sores and ulcers from being on a fucking couch for 12 years. Like, there's just so many fucking things that Sheila and Clay Fletcher really did not think through. Not to mention, Lacey Fletcher had not been to a doctor since she was 16 years old. And she was found at 36. So about, 12 years later. She had not seen a doctor for 12 years since she was 16 years old. And get this though, the parents, Sheila and Clay Fletcher, visited the doctor without Lacey. And they asked the doctor basically like hypotheticals, and it also explains like how Lacey was doing. They told her that she was anxious, antisocial, she was recluse, she had anxiety, she didn't want to leave the house. And the doctor, I shit you not, told them that they should bring her in because it seems like she needs medical attention, whether it's severe or not, the things that she's dealing with. He was encouraging the parents to bring Lacey in for a checkup. Did they ever bring her in? No. Did the doctor report that? Yeah, he reported that they had never come in. They never touched base with the clinic, the office on scheduling an appointment for her, nothing. So willingly and knowingly, they did not bring their daughter to a doctor for her disabilities for whatever fucking reason. As far as I know, it was never declared why they didn't bring her in. I don't know if it's maybe because they were scared of the doctors finding something out, which tells me that the abuse that Lacey was enduring from Sheila and Clay Fletcher had been going on since she was 16. I mean, I really just don't get that. Like, as a parent, the health and safety of your child should always come first and be a priority. So if you're telling a doctor that she's recluse, she has social anxiety, she doesn't want to leave the house, she's being extremely difficult, her disabilities are evolving, and they tell you to bring the child in and you don't bring them in, make it make sense, bitch. And no, there was no reports of them bringing her to another doctor and still situating everything. Medical visits and history for Lacey Fletcher ceased at 16 years of age. Like, she had not seen a doctor at all for 12 years. You know, as things were coming to light, a lot of friends and family would say that Sheila went from posting about, Lacey, a couple days a week, maybe once a week, every other week or whatever, consistently to none since like 2011. And, they thought it was like very peculiar because Sheila would post her a lot on Facebook. And then just in 2011, just didn't see any posts about Lacey. People would ask about her and they would just say, oh yeah, like she's good. I think they even white lied to one person, tried to say that she moved out of state, had a boyfriend, had a whole life away from Louisiana just to bring the heat off of themselves. If their daughter is out of state, people will stop poking around and asking, where is she? Why haven't I seen her around the house or the neighborhood? So for their own comfort, they would lie about Lacey's whereabouts just to save their ass. And even one neighbor, I forget his name, but he was that one neighbor that's like nosy, wants to know like what's going on. And he would like ask about her as well. They would white lie and say the same. And he reported to have seen her once several years ago outside Lacey working out with dumbbells, walking around the neighborhood, just exercising. And he said after that, you know, after that sighting, he had never seen her again. And after that, he had asked like Clay, you know, like, hey, how's your daughter doing? Like, where is she? I haven't seen her. He lied and said like, oh, she's out of state. Like, you know, she's still around, but she's like busy doing her own thing. So yeah, they definitely try to save their ass a lot by lying. I think the only reason this went on longer than it should have was the fact that their own daughter could not speak for herself, could not defend herself, and could not make her presence known given her syndrome. So they definitely heavily preyed on her disability, which would unfortunately be a weakness. The fact that she couldn't defend herself, speak for herself, it's a weakness, and they preyed on it. They took advantage of it. And for that, I feel that they deserve to rot in hell. For 12 years, while Lacey rotted away on that couch, they knew about her every waking moment of every day, and they never gave a fuck about her. For 12 years, they celebrated holidays and New Year's knowing that she was on the couch decaying in their very living room. For 12 years, they shared memories with friends and family while Lacey was dying on that couch, starving. Fuck them, honestly. They deserve to be dragged back to court and put in jail for the consequences of their actions for the rest of their lives, because they took more from Lacey than just a prison sentence. They took away her life. They took away her ability to explore herself in this world. They took away everything from her. Her dignity, her beauty, her... My heart is just heavy. That sucks. It sucks that they're still alive walking this earth while she's dead. She didn't even have a fighting chance, and they took advantage of that. She was this sweet ball of light, and they left her on that couch to die. So there's a petition to get a second court hearing going as soon as possible. I'm going to link it down below. I just asked if you guys can please take a minute of your time to register for the petition. It's basically to drag Sheila and Clay Fletcher into court as soon as possible and get the verdict rolling and send them to prison. The petition has been dry for about 2 to 3 months from this point in time. And that's really sad to see, because it's been a whole ass year since this has happened, and I would love to see justice served, and I hope everybody agrees that they'd like to see the same. One thing for sure is the lawyer that is Aquila. I'm definitely butchering his name. I'll add photos and references here on the screen, but I like him a lot. He is the lawyer that's against Sheila and Clay Fletcher. He's the lawyer that's basically trying to put them in jail for what they did to their daughter. And he's been fighting for a court trial and to put them away in jail for the shit that they've done. And I'm with him, and I really appreciate his integrity, because obviously there's no one that's taking that physical presence of defending Lacey, and whether it's in, court, legally, lawyers and whatnot, or if it's a friend or family, relative, whatever, nobody has really stepped up to defend her. Honestly, if it wasn't for Tequila and the coroner and the way the body was found, Sheila and Clay Fletcher would honestly just walk away scot-free. And it really sucks that I strongly feel that way, just given how things are even now. They bailed themselves out not even 24, 48 hours after the death of their daughter, and they're just walking back out into the public like fucking nothing happened. I honestly don't feel like people like that deserve to have the ability to walk out of jail again. I feel like they should have just been fucking locked up. I get it. Things have to be processed and officialized and blah, blah, which I get. But I honestly, no matter how long it takes, I just feel like at the end of the day, no matter how shit goes, they need to be in jail. They need to be in fucking jail. I'm like so baffled by this. I've like covered so many stories. I've covered so many crime times, murder cases, what have you, and they have never really bothered me as much as this one. Like this one, obviously, to each their own. I'm gonna have a certain irritation or rage or anger or confusion or depression about it, but this one is just a mixture. I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm upset, just for many reasons. For what happened to Lacey Fletcher, how it happened to her, especially from the main people in your life that are supposed to provide you safety and protection. They did the quite opposite. She had the mentality of like a 14-year-old. I understand she was 36 when she was found, but she is the mentality of a 14-year-old girl. She's a child. She had no idea what was going on. And who knows, with her locked-in syndrome, she was probably screaming out for help. She was trying to fucking talk to them. Who knows, at one point, probably trying to tell them off. But she couldn't talk. She couldn't do anything. And, you know, I think that's where my anger stems for the most part, is they took advantage of the fact that she had this syndrome that didn't allow her to do anything, not fight back. They didn't have to worry about that. And I think that's what makes it even more like upsetting is, again, they preyed on the fact that, you know, hey, we can torture her and do this and that and make her life a living hell because she's not going to do anything. She can't. And I feel like they took that and they fucking ran with it. Yeah, again, it's so funny. Like when I get on camera, my rants are honestly super fucking like ineffective. They're just rambles off camera. When I'm gonna be honest, when I'm like venting to myself about this shit, I'm going off. And it just blows my mind. We come to find out too that upon the autopsy and like running tests on Lacey's body, that it was discovered she also had COVID-19. This young lady is not capable of leaving the household, so obviously her parents gave it to her. They were traveling, they were spending time outside of the house. One day, one of them came back and passed on COVID-19 to Lacey, which goes to further my narrative that they were fucking with her while she was on that couch, because COVID-19 is through contact. It's through touch. If someone sneezes, the infected person happens to sneeze or like has saliva on their hand and touches a surface that person touches, or even directly just touches that person, like on the nose, the mouth, whatever. It shows that they were messing with her body. They were acknowledging the fact that she was on that couch and they gave her COVID-19. So she was sick and battling that amongst everything else that was discovered, like the maggots, the infections, all of that. They could have put Lacey up for adoption. They could have put her in a residential care facility of some kind that takes people in with disabilities and cares for them. They could have hired a live-in nurse that could assist with the care of Lacey. They could have given her to a supportive group home for those with disabilities. They could have given to her a family member who was willing and capable of taking care of Lacey and her needs. That was 5 motherfucking options. They did not bother, investigating further and seeing if it was an option available to them, if any of them would work. They just let her fucking die. Clay was fired from the Baton Rouge. I think he was honestly disowned, like his work, and the Baton Rouge were like, peace, motherfucker. Like, we don't want you here. This is honestly horrifying. Best of luck. Sheila was placed on unpaid leave instead of being fired, but later on, after the murder of her daughter and like things started coming to light, she felt too uncomfortable continuing her job as the town alderman and as the secretary for the city's prosecutor. So she resigned herself and just excused herself from her work. And it makes sense. I mean, Sheila is a fucking coward. So, of course, she's going to resign from her job because she doesn't want to deal with the looks and the gossip and the rumors. And even though it wouldn't be rumors, it would just be people literally talking about the shit that she's actually done. But yeah, she just opted out. She did not want to face the consequences of her actions. I think people talking about it at work just made it way too real for her. So she resigned. Same with Clay, like he was fired, but he didn't bother like trying to defend his position and his job. He just like was like, okay, bye. Like they gave up, they threw the towel in. They were going to fight the public. That's that. Obviously they were detained after the coroner and the paramedics evaluated the scene and performed an autopsy. They were arrested. They posted bail and they bailed themselves out again within 48 hours of being arrested. And you know, something tells me if you can afford that fucking bond, you can definitely afford a live-in nurse for your daughter for the past 12 years, but fuck you. And again, we're awaiting court. As far as I understand from my research and the most recent updated news in revolving around this case, we're waiting for a trial. And honestly, I think I'll do an updated video after the trial is released. Just following up after this first video here. And I hope it's soon. And I hope the verdict is guilty. And I hope it's related to murder because, yeah, Sheila and Clay Fletcher, they do not deserve to walk free. They don't. And if they do, I'm going to petition their ass to get locked up because this is just some bullshit. You know, it's just, you have to be some kind of psycho, narcissistic, angry piece of shit to prey on someone with a disability, take advantage of it, and just kill them, let their life wither away, and watch it happen right in front of you. Like, that takes a specific kind of cruel, evil person. Those are all the details that I have for you guys that I was able to accumulate in my time of researching on the internet. I really appreciate you guys joining me for this video today. Please give it a like. Please subscribe if you would like to continue seeing content like this in the future. I really appreciate you joining me today. Please definitely flood the comments again with any details or information related to this case that I may have missed or overlooked or was not privy to. And please start a conversation down below if you guys feel that Clay and Sheila Fletcher are guilty or if they're not. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what angle you guys think this is. Was it neglect? Was it intentional? Was it not? Would this be considered murdered? Would it not? Like, I want to know your guys' opinion. Obviously, you come here to see mine, but I also really would like to know where everyone else is at. So thank you guys very much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Thank you. Peace.